Hi, I'm Alex, 35, and 3 weeks ago, I walked in on my wife and her mother whispering about fixing me, and I didn't even know I was broken. So here's the thing. I'm a stay-at-home dad. Yeah, not super common, I get it. But when our son was born, my wife Marissa and I sat down like two rational adults, did the math, and realized that it made way more sense for me to stay home. Her job as a hospital administrator paid better, had benefits, and honestly, she liked it. Meanwhile, I was an underpaid history teacher with a crippling caffeine addiction and exactly zero upward momentum. Fast forward 6 years, and I've got this whole parenting gig down. I pack bento lunches like a Pinterest influencer, run a tight ship with soccer practice and playdates, and still find time to keep the house borderline respectable. Was it the life I imagined in college? No. But do I love it? Absolutely. Marissa used to, too. She'd brag about me to her friends, telling them how lucky she was to have a husband who handled it all at home. Keyword used to. Enter my mother-in-law. Beverly. 62 years of tightly coiffed opinions, and a PhD in passive aggression. She started dropping jokes last year, comments like, "Back in my day, real men didn't wear baby carriers." And, "It's sweet how you help around the house, Alex." Help. Like I was the teenage son who remembered to take the trash out, not the adult man literally running the entire household. I let it slide at first. But then the whispering started. 3 weeks ago, I came home early from a grocery run, thank you, forgotten milk, and I caught them huddled in the kitchen. Beverly was saying, "If he won't get a job, we'll have to nudge him." Marissa was quiet, arms folded, chewing her bottom lip like she used to when she lied as a kid. I walked in. They shut up instantly. Smiled too fast. Beverly patted my arm and told me, "Don't worry, sweetie, we were just talking about the laundry situation." Right. Because laundry requires conspiratorial whispers and pitiful glances. I didn't confront them. Yet. Because I knew something they didn't. And I was about to let them hang themselves with their own smug little ropes. The next few days were like watching a sitcom where I was the only one who knew the punchline. Beverly suddenly started, dropping by more often. Once, she even brought a stack of job listings printed out in Comic Sans. I swear, the woman thinks she's subtle. She handed them to me with a fake smile and a little shrug, like she was offering me cookies instead of an insult. "This one's for an office assistant," she chirped. "Very reasonable hours. You could do it part-time while still folding towels or whatever it is you do." Marissa didn't stop her. She just gave me a look. You know the one. The just play along, please look. I played along, all right. I asked if Beverly had any listings for medieval historians who also know how to get yogurt out of car seat buckles. She didn't laugh. That weekend, things escalated. I found out Marissa had opened a new joint checking account. With just her name on it. Let that marinate. When I asked about it, she acted like I was overreacting. "It's just for organizing bills," she said. "You know, splitting things up more cleanly." Financial clarity. Clarity, my ass. We've been operating as a team for years. Everything joint. No secrets. And now suddenly she's following her mother's playbook? So I started my own investigation. Turns out Beverly had also been encouraging Marissa to put our house, the one I renovated top to bottom, under her name only. Just in case. Beverly had told her. You never know when people change. People like me, apparently. The jobless freeloader husband with suspiciously clean baseboards. I didn't confront Marissa right away. I wanted to see how far she'd go. I wanted her to feel just comfortable enough to get sloppy. Because what neither of them knew was that I wasn't just a stay-at-home dad. I'd been working. Quietly. From home. And I was about to drop a bomb that would shut Beverly up for good. Here's the part no one saw coming. For the past 8 months, I'd been ghostwriting history ebooks under a pen name. It started as a passion project, just me ranting about the Crusades in blog form. But apparently, the internet loves a snarky take on medieval chaos, because one post went viral, then another, and before I knew it, a small indie publisher reached out. Fast forward, I now had 4 best-selling ebooks on obscure European dynasties, a Patreon with 10,000 subscribers, and a quiet but steady income stream that, as of last month, had surpassed Marissa's salary. I hadn't told her. Not because I was hiding it, but because I wanted something that was mine. I'd spent years being the house husband, the butt of Beverly's jokes, the one people assumed was sponging off his wife. I just needed to prove to myself I still had it. And now, well, I had it in spades. So, armed with bank statements and a perfectly calm smile, I waited until Sunday brunch. Beverly was there, of course, acting like she owned the air. Marissa sat beside her, tapping her phone, probably calculating which part of our lives to financially clarify next. "I've been thinking," I said, setting down my mimosa. "Yes, I make a killer brunch." "About what you said, Bev. About getting a job." Beverly beamed like she'd finally trained the family dog to stop peeing on the rug. "Oh? That's wonderful, dear." Marissa looked up cautiously. I reached into the drawer beside me, pulled out the manila envelope I'd prepared, and slid it across the table. "Here's my W-9. And my quarterly tax filings. Turns out, ghostwriting books about 14th century blood feuds pays surprisingly well." Silence. Beautiful, choking silence. Beverly blinked. Marissa opened the envelope, scanned the first page, and froze. "You made this much?" she asked quietly, her voice suddenly missing its usual confidence. "Yup. And that's just Q3. Beverly made a sound like a dying parrot. "Well, isn't that something?" "Oh, and Bev?" I leaned back, real casual. "Since you're so into fairness, maybe now you can start paying rent. This house isn't just Marissa's, after all. My name's on the deed, too." Her mouth opened. Then shut. Then opened again. I think she was buffering. It was glorious. For a woman who once claimed she could disarm a burglar with just her glare, Beverly looked shook. She was staring at the tax docs like they were written in Sanskrit. I'm pretty sure I saw her lips moving as she tried to do the math. Spoiler alert, she couldn't. Marissa, on the other hand, had gone oddly quiet. Not guilty quiet, more like, "My entire narrative just collapsed in front of me and I don't know where to put my hands." Quiet. "So," I said, sipping my mimosa, "since I'm now technically the higher earner, I was thinking we might want to revisit who's freeloading off whom." "Alex," Marissa started. "It's not like that." "Really?" I raised an eyebrow. Because from where I'm sitting, it sure felt like there was a covert operation going on to push me back into the workforce. Or into a corner. Or out the door. Hard to tell. Beverly cleared her throat like she was auditioning for a lung disease PSA. "We were just concerned. You know how things look from the outside. A man staying home, people talk." "People talk?" I laughed. "Bev, you talk. Constantly. To anyone who'll listen. You've called me a glorified nanny to my face. And Marissa." I turned to my wife. "You didn't exactly shut that down." Marissa looked away. "And now that you've seen the numbers," I added, "are we good? Or do you want me to start invoicing for all the unpaid labor I've done over the past 6 years? That one landed. Marissa flinched. Beverly, though, still wasn't done embarrassing herself. "Well, you can't just expect us to forget everything. This doesn't change how things felt." "No," I agreed. "But it changes how they are. And how they're gonna be moving forward." That's when I pulled out the second envelope. Marissa's eyes widened. "What is that?" "A lease agreement." "For who?" she asked, already knowing the answer. I grinned. "Beverly. Since she's been living in our guest suite rent-free for the past 2 years, I figured it was time we formalize her living arrangement. You know, clarity." "Isn't that what you said, Marissa?" You could hear a fork hit the floor. Beverly's hands went limp. The papers fluttered to the table like a sitcom punchline. This is outrageous," she gasped. "I'm family." "So am I said. "And yet here we are." Beverly didn't pick up the lease agreement. She just sat there staring at it like it had personally insulted her crockpot lasagna. Her mouth opened then closed again, like a fish struggling to process betrayal. I gave her time. I figured she needed a minute to mourn the death of her freeloading era. Meanwhile, Marissa just sat frozen, as if someone had unplugged her. She finally spoke, voice barely above a whisper. You really wrote all those books without telling me? I nodded. Yup. During nap times, early mornings, after bedtime. You know, those long stretches when I wasn't busy folding towels or whatever I do. She flinched. I wasn't hiding it, I added. But after a while, I realized it felt good to have something of my own. Something no one could dismiss or micromanage or belittle. Beverly scoffed. Well, excuse me for trying to help. Help? I repeated, genuinely impressed at her delusion. You've spent 2 years making comments about my masculinity, criticizing my parenting, and now you're meddling in our finances. If this is your version of help, remind me never to ask you to babysit my career. That shut her up. Marissa finally looked up. Okay, she said quietly. Okay, you're right. I should have defended you. I let her get in my head. She lives in our house, Marissa. Rent-free. And you still let her act like I'm the one mooching. I know, she said, running a hand through her hair. God, I thought I was being neutral. Keeping the peace. I nodded slowly. Well, peacekeeping's over. From now on, we're running this house like a partnership again. That means no secret bank accounts. No side conversations with your mom about my career path. And definitely no more pretending that her presence here doesn't cost us something. Then I looked at Beverly. You have until the end of the week to sign that lease. Or find somewhere else to stay. She gasped like I'd slapped her. You can't be serious. I'm finally being serious. I said. You want to stay in this house? You pay rent like the rest of the adults. Or you pack your essential oils and passive aggression and find another porch to haunt. She stood up, trembling with righteous fury. This is absurd. I am your mother-in-law. And I am your landlord. I said. Act accordingly. Beverly did not, in fact, act accordingly. Instead, she stormed off to her room, the guest suite sheet, temporarily, moved into 2 years ago, and slammed the door so hard it rattled the butter dish. For the next 48 hours, we heard nothing but dramatic sighing, passive-aggressive vacuuming, and what I'm pretty sure was her angrily scrubbing a single plate for 20 solid minutes. Marissa, meanwhile, was on edge. Guilt-tripping herself into knots, second-guessing everything. Maybe I've been too hard on her, she said at one point. She's just old-fashioned. No, I said. She's weaponized. And I meant it. Beverly wasn't some clueless boomer who didn't understand modern family dynamics. She understood just fine. She just didn't respect them. As far as she was concerned, her daughter had married a man-shaped Roomba who made snacks and was somehow still a disappointment. On day 3, the real circus started. We got a call from Marissa's aunt. Beverly had been busy. She called half the family, spinning a tale about how I was evicting a poor old woman just for asking her son-in-law to be a man. Apparently, I was also an internet scammer, and possibly cult adjacent. Which I have to admit is kind of impressive slander. I mean, you have to admire the creativity. Marissa tried to run damage control, but the family group chat had already exploded into factions, Team Beverly, Team Alex, and one rogue cousin just sending minion memes. Meanwhile, I stuck to the plan. That Friday, I slid the unsigned lease under Beverly's door with a sticky note. Rent due by Monday. No extensions. Love, your landlord. She didn't come out all weekend. I assumed she was busy knitting a voodoo doll of me out of dryer lint and spite. Then came Monday. I was in the middle of prepping school lunches, cutting strawberries into hearts because I'm an overachiever, thank you, and in she shuffled. Puffy-eyed. No makeup. Hair like a startled goose. And she handed me a check. First month's rent, she said stiffly. I blinked. Wow. I didn't even have to serve an eviction notice. She scowled. Don't push it. I smiled. Wouldn't dream of it. Tenant relations are very important to me. She left without another word. Marissa just stood there, staring at the check like it was a UFO. You actually did it, she whispered. No, I corrected. We did it. You backed me up. Eventually. She smiled sheepishly. I guess I just didn't realize how much I'd let her get in between us. I shrugged. It happens. Families are messy. But now she's officially our mess. On a month-to-month lease. We high-fived. It felt weird. But good. For the first time in years, I felt like an actual adult in my own house again. With Beverly officially a tenant and the family drama mostly contained, minus a few lingering names from Cousin Derek, we finally found our new rhythm. She kept to herself more, which honestly improved the feng shui of the entire house. It was like someone had turned down the volume on a particularly judgmental podcast that had been playing on loop for 2 years. Rent came in on time. No accidental overdrafts, no suspicious lost in the mail delays. Just cold, hard passive-aggressive compliance. Marissa and I started to feel like, dare I say it, teammates again. We cooked together more. Laughed more. She even started reading my books, well, skimming them. She still says medieval nobles are just messy influencers in armor. Which is not wrong. But things weren't perfect. There was still a quiet tension between her and her mom, like neither one of them wanted to talk about the past few months, but both knew the conversation was coming. It was like a family game of emotional chicken. Then one morning, I walked into the kitchen and found Beverly crying. Not the performative kind either. Not the, "Oh no, my latte was made with 2% instead of skim" tears. I mean real, silent, shoulders shaking kind of crying. She was holding a photo of her late husband. I hadn't seen that picture in ages. She looked up and froze. We just stared at each other for a moment. Neither of us moved. "I didn't mean to," she started, then stopped. "I didn't think I'd still be here this long." I leaned against the counter. "You mean in our house? Or in general?" She laughed through her tears. "Both." That caught me off guard. She looked smaller somehow. Not physically, still terrifying, but emotionally. "I was scared," she admitted. "When I lost him, I didn't know how to be alone. So I clung to Marissa. Tried to control her life. And by extension, yours." I didn't say anything. I just waited. "You weren't what I pictured for her," she continued. "But that's on me. Because you're better than what I pictured." "Okay." I did not see that one coming. She wiped her face with a paper towel like it was sandpaper and cleared her throat. "Don't expect a parade or anything. But I was wrong. That might be the closest Beverly will ever get to an apology. And honestly, I'll take it." "I never wanted to kick you out," I said quietly. "But I needed you to see that I wasn't the one taking advantage." She nodded. "I see it now." And then, in true Beverly fashion, she added, "Also, that lease was way too detailed." "You're a nerd." "Historian," I corrected. She smirked. "Same thing." I left the kitchen without making it a moment, but I couldn't help the stupid grin on my face. We'd finally turned a corner. And I was pretty sure the next one was going to be even better. 3 months later, everything had changed, quietly, almost invisibly, the way seasons shift when you're not looking. Not with fireworks or huge dramatic speeches, but in the little things: fewer slammed doors, more laughter echoing down the hallway, the faint sound of my son's giggles blending with the tapping of Marissa's heels as she came home from work. We were somehow, finally balanced. I'd gone from a man accused of doing nothing all day to someone running a modest but very real business. My Patreon subscribers had doubled. I'd signed a deal with a podcast network to do a limited series called Betrayal and Banner Men, and brace yourself, I'd even been invited to speak at a community college. In person. With the mic, Marissa started bragging again, only this time it was less performative. Less about optics. She'd call me Professor sarcastically when I burned dinner, but I could see the pride in her eyes when she did. We were reconnecting, not just as co-parents but as people. The version of us that existed before her mother moved in and quietly rewrote the rules of our marriage was starting to return. Beverly? Well, she was still Beverly. But a slightly edited version. She paid her rent, stayed out of our business, and only occasionally tried to, accidentally, be in the room when I was recording podcast episodes so she could chime in with wildly inaccurate historical takes. I finally had to sit her down and explain, again, that Henry VIII didn't invent divorce. She pouted for 2 days. But the biggest shift came one evening when I found her in the laundry room, folding towels. Yes. Folding my towels. I didn't even know she knew where they were kept. What are you doing? I asked cautiously, like one might approach a raccoon near a trash can. She didn't look at me. Helping. Voluntarily? She sniffed. Don't push it. There. Later that night, after the kids were asleep, Marissa and I sat on the couch with our laptops, her finishing some grant application, me editing an audiobook file, and she suddenly looked up and said, I think we should rewrite the will. Not exactly romantic, but okay. She explained that with our new financial situation, it made sense to revisit everything. The house. Custody preferences. Emergency plans. And yes, what we'd do about Beverly. We need to set boundaries in writing, she said. In case anything happens to either of us. I don't want her taking over again. Not ever. I nodded. I agree. I already started drafting something. Want to see it? She raised an eyebrow. You drafted a will? No. I grinned. A contingency plan. What kind of contingency? I reached into the drawer of our side table and pulled out a manila envelope. Her eyes widened, again. I really needed to stop weaponizing office supplies. Inside was a single page, the emergency MIL protocol. Step 1, change the Wi-Fi password. Step 2, hide all spare keys. Step 3, hire a mediator before she brings out her old widow. Routine. Step 4, pretend not to understand her guilt trips by responding only in Middle English. Step 5, charge triple rent if she calls me Manny again. Marissa laughed so hard she almost fell off the couch. She laughed until her mascara started to smudge, and she wheezed into a pillow. That's legally airtight, she said. We should laminate it. We were good again. And then, out of nowhere, I got an email. From a major publisher. They wanted to turn my books into a full historical fiction series, with my name on the cover this time. I showed Marissa. She blinked stunned. Wait, so you'll be, like, famous? I shrugged. Literally tens of people already know me online. No, seriously, Alex. This is huge. Beverly, who had materialized in the hallway like a Victorian ghost, popped her head in. Did I hear book deal? Yup, I said smugly. They're turning my nerd rants into something people might actually put on a shelf. She nodded slowly. Well, I suppose that's something. Maybe you'll finally be worth interviewing on Good Morning America. Oh, I said. If they call, don't worry. I'll give you a shout-out. Something classy. Like dedicated to the woman who inspired me to become financially independent by nearly breaking up my marriage. She narrowed her eyes. You're lucky I pay rent now. You're lucky I haven't raised it. She huffed and walked away, muttering something about rent control and betrayal. I looked at Marissa. Think she'll be okay? She nodded. Honestly? Yeah. I think she needed someone to draw the line. Even if she hates that it was you. A week later, Beverly came to me holding a plate of freshly baked muffins. That alone almost triggered my fight-or-flight response. I added protein powder, she said, thrusting the plate toward me. Thought you could use the energy for all your little history projects. Thanks, I said, cautiously sniffing one. And, she added, clearing her throat, I was thinking of getting a part-time job. That got my attention. Really? Doing what? She hesitated. Library assistant. They said I could organize the local history section. Beverly, I said, genuinely moved. That's actually perfect. She nodded, then turned away quickly. Don't make it weird. I'm not trying to prove anything. I just like card catalogs. Marissa heard the whole thing and just stared at me. What did you do to her? I don't know, I said. Maybe we just finally called her bluff. And so, for the first time since Beverly came to live with us, our house became a home again. The kind where you could breathe. Where nobody was watching over your shoulder with a side eye and a spreadsheet. Where respect wasn't conditional on a paycheck, and love didn't require groveling. I still make the lunches. Still do bedtime stories. Still fold the towels, though I'm now occasionally joined by a reformed MIL who folds with suspicious aggression but keeps her mouth mostly shut. And every once in a while, When I sit down at my desk and start writing about royal backstabbings or family betrayals, I think to myself, huh, I've lived through worse. And she didn't even wear a crown. The end.